Chapter 4. The Big Heist. Reform. Horrified and groggy, Ronin woke up from one of the worst experiences of his life. He'd seen what could only be called pure evil. He'd been shown his worst memories, repeatedly, all the while feeling a crippling sensation of anxiety and paranoia. The creeping fear of not entirely being in control of himself earlier today had become a full-blown demon, giving him strong mental suggestions on the glory of becoming a battle maniac. Ugh, I'm never doing that again. He groaned as he shook his head, trying to come back to his senses. The demons you faced in that place are your own inner demons. Adam Spice merely showed you what you yourself have suppressed. Embrace it next time, Nagata said from the other end of the room. Whatever. Ronin got out, not believing a word the man said. Anyways, put on this Faraday hat and come over here. The blockchain key is about to show us what it's hiding. Faraday hat? Blockchain key? Ronin asked, a bit puzzled over the names. A Faraday hat is just what we call a miniaturized Faraday cage. It prevents the signals of your optical implant from going out. It looks like a normal hat, too. This one's pretty fashionable if you ask me, Nagata said. He handed Ronin a black hat, and as Ronin put it on, it tightly wrapped itself around his head. Leaning back into his chair, Nagata cut off a piece of the cheese on the table, threw it into his mouth, chewed, then began to explain. This is the one area not shielded from the outside. It's why I gave you that hat. All right. Ronin nodded, then walked over towards the uncanny uncle. The device you looted off that CLM insurgent is a blockchain key, Nagata explained. It's a type of device you usually use for transactions you want off the record. They can lead to many things, but generally, it gives access to a cryptocurrency account. This one appears to lead to a shared account. The number of safeguards I've had to bypass along the way for this one is a new record for me, to be honest. Someone went into a lot of trouble to keep this thing secure. Nagata gestured with his hands, and a projector lit up, revealing a holographic screen. All right, this should be it, he finished, then did a weird sideways twitch with his head. Next, the holographic screen changed, and new numbers and letters began to appear. By the humanity! They both exclaimed. Nagata, firmly gripping the table, began to stammer. I expected it to be cryptocurrency, but this... Translating this into tar credits, it would at least be enough to do whatever you want, Ronin finished. The sum displayed in front of them, if converted, was enough to pay the fine Ronin had been issued at the Space Force Academy. It was enough to pay for a new house, a workshop and hangar to build spaceships. It was enough for him to pay for patent licenses, the latest and newest implants. Heck, with this, even if he bought a couple of mid-sized ship designer companies, he'd still have leftover cash to burn. They were looking at the equivalent of 800 million tar credits. Can we even take this? Ronin questioned. I mean, even if you could technically do it, and I mean theoretically, if you could hide that it was us who took it, wouldn't this set some things in motion that would somehow harm us regardless of that? I mean, this amount is just too much, right? There would have to be consequences. Nagata was silent for a moment. Theoretically, I can do it, he said. We'd have to be extremely careful on how we spend the credits, though, but yes, it's possible. They looked at each other, then burst nervously into laughter. I think I need to lay back down on the couch, Ronin mumbled, firmly gripping his Faraday hat. This thing was not coming off today. What followed was an intense discussion that lasted for hours. This sum of cryptocurrency was simply too enormous not to talk about. As time passed, however, what they talked about changed. From initial questions about what could happen to them if they took the money, the discussion devolved into conversations about benefits. It's terrorist money. Imagine how many people we'll save if we take it, Ronin said greedily. Nagata nodded along sagely. Yes, from your description of the CLM, they're a lot worse than portrayed in the media. The more we take, the better. By the end, they were only talking about how to get the money, not whether or not they should. Finally, after agreeing on how to handle the cryptocurrency, Nagata began to transfer the funds onto different anonymous accounts. 80% of the funds were to go to Ronin on a new blockchain key. The key, set up to be entirely virtual, was now even more secure than the key he'd come in with. As for the remaining 20%, they were to be transferred to Nagata as payment for the hacking job. By the way Nagata had set it up, the currency should be almost impossible to trace back to them. Only by actually spending the currency could anybody link up who'd used it. But by the time they did, any and all connection to the terrorist account should be gone. Neither Ronin nor Nagata dared to be careless when it came to this. As an extra layer of protection, Nagata also set up numerous shell companies with tenuous but binding links to each other. Those links were, however, drowned in an ocean of other tenuous links, which were not binding. They looked like they were, though. This would allow them to spend the money without anyone actually knowing who owned it. Long story short, the links between them and the credits were close to impossible to find, and if they were found out, the two would have no connection to the CLM. After deducting the fees for the shell companies, Ronin now sat on the equivalent of 634 million tar credits. He could finally set up his own company, and for anyone but him and Nagata, he would just look like another employee. As they both grinned at each other, Nagata couldn't help but comment, "I might have to stop doing atom spice from now on. The paranoia might drive me crazy considering what we've done." Ronin bolted up in fury. "I knew it! I knew you really didn't believe in drugs!" "Now calm down. If you're already very paranoid when you take it, you will naturally become even more paranoid. That's not how... What do you think I was when I came here? Listen, your situation was different. You've never taken it before and had a lot of inner demons to confront." "What? Inner demons? Isn't your paranoia a demon? Confront it!" Ronin, once again, vowed to himself never to trust this damn hypocrite when it came to things like this. He'd been fooled once by Nagata, but that was the last and final time. Never again. Nameka. 25 light-years away from Concordia, Nameka leaned back into a comfortable gel-cushioned chair. It was made to perfectly fit the body in such a way to make it as comfortable as possible. Nanites shaped the gel where the body didn't, and the result? It was ergonomic when you needed it, massaged you when you felt stiff, and maximized your comfort when you could afford it. Today, she could afford it. Operation Lightfall had been an exemplary success. The push during the meeting with the heads of state in Tar had been more than enough to firmly nudge Tar further into Sichuan's sphere of influence. All she'd had to do for this success was to arrange for some spies to finance various reactionary extremist elements in the Tar Kingdom and, like clockwork, they'd delivered. Extremist elements which, by the way, her predecessors had fostered and nurtured as they pushed Tar into taking several authoritarian actions against their own people earlier. The only way for Tar not to collapse now was for it to take even more control over its people, making it even more like the Sichuan Empire. Nameka had originally been quite upset about being transferred far away to a planet in the middle of nowhere. The planet lacked development and technology. It was far away from their new home where the glorious party imperiously pushed forward their grand vision of humanity. One people, one mind, one party, one leader. The importance of a single-minded focus when confronting the horrors of the universe was paramount if humanity was to survive after all. That being said, though, being transferred this far away was not without its benefits. Before coming here, she'd never believed she'd actually start to enjoy her freedom. The worry of the bomb implanted into her head was close to non-existent now. The frequent speech pattern analysis checkups, chemical tests, and behavioral evaluations had been normal back on their new homeworld. Staying here for a few years, though, had changed all of that. She now dreaded those tests. No, she would continue to stay here for as long as she could, and she'd do so by doing what she did best, being good at her job. Nameka's implant signaled her of an incoming call. What was this? Why was one of her spies calling her at this hour? No matter, it was probably just some minor issue. Perhaps more men than expected had been arrested due to Operation Lightfall? She picked up the call, then went pale immediately after. According to her spy, all of the funds she'd been allocated for the CLM had just gone up and vanished. Cold sweat began to form along the back of her neck. This was a major issue. The CLM destabilization project was important to Sichuan's overall strategy for Tar. If these funds were not found, she could kiss her position as a diplomat goodbye. With a blunder like this under her belt, losing her job was actually the best-case scenario. At worst, she shuddered as she thought about the bomb installed in her head. "Find me that money," she shouted into the comm. "I don't care what you have to do, just find it. And don't, under any circumstance, let those funds be connected back to Sichuan. This is an order." She closed the call, the gel-cushioned chair suddenly not feeling as comfortable anymore. Just how did they do it? She thought as she forcefully massaged her head. If she didn't figure this out, they couldn't even transfer more funds over to the CLM. It might just be stolen again. And if there was some critical oversight in their financial security, all of their other projects could be in danger as well. Chapter 5. Visiting the Doctor. With hungry eyes, Ronin stared as row after row of new and exciting dishes were being brought out. After his and Nagata's big crypto theft, he'd immediately booked an appointment to replace his implant. But now that he had the money, why not treat himself a little first? As the fancy restaurant buzzed, Ronin's table was filled with all sorts of dishes. From rare seafood delicacies to premium beef straight from the nearby planet Hartheim, he ate it all. After aggressively devouring another meal, Ronin gulped down a glass of taste-optimized water as he basked in his newfound luxury. He'd been right to visit this place before the operation. This must be what it feels like to be rich. Ronin beamed. The upper districts of Ironglades were truly something else. Having eaten synth paste bars for most of his life, Ronin felt as if a whole new world had opened up before him. And with everything that had happened recently, this hearty meal was just the thing he needed. He once again went over the plan he and Nagata had come up with. First and foremost, the new implant he was getting would have to be free from tampering and secure. The issue was that, if what Darth had said was true, not a single implant made on Concordia would be safe to use. That's where, fortunately, Nagata had been able to help. The uncanny uncle knew of certain places operating on the gray side of the law that sold and installed implants from off-world. With this, Ronin would be able to buy an implant from a large intergalactic brand. and there was no way this kingdom was tampering with something like that. If it ever got out that Tar installed listening devices onto implants sold to hundreds of different worlds, they'd be ruined. Next, seeing as Ronin was a rich man now, he could afford to spend some credits, so a high-quality device would be ideal. What he settled on was the Uninet 2000X. Being from a widely accepted brand, the Uninet was used all over human space and by many different kingdoms. It should be enough. Also, compared to his current government-issued implant, the Uninet had more storage capacity and higher uplink speeds. It even had a magnetic resonance feature, which could be used to scan his body if he ever got injured. The only thing left to do now was to visit the black market doctor and get it done. Wolfing down the last plate, Ronin generously tipped the restaurant staff, then rose up to leave. Stepping out onto a fancy see-through elevator, he was met by the view of flying shuttles and blue neon lights. He pressed the button. Floor 289. It was time for an upgrade. Ding! The soft sound of an elevator arriving sounded out as Ronin reached the floor. Everything was white here. The walls, the floor, the front desk, the empty waiting chairs, the autonomous vacuum cleaner. Everything. Huh? Ronin noticed that his access to the net had been cut off. They've got to have something similar to Uncle, he thought. Good. If they'd spent the effort to enclose an entire floor in a Faraday cage, they were probably thorough when it came to other areas as well. These guys were professionals. "Mr. Maximus, right on time?" a woman said. She had long chestnut-colored hair and looked to be in her 30s. She walked over, her white medical coat swaying from side to side as she did. "Name's Dr. Xianxia Furness. I see here that you've also ordered a full body scan. Would you like us to perform it after or before the surgery?" "Which way is faster?" Ronin asked. The faster he got this over with, the better. "If we do it after the procedure, the scan will proceed while you are still unconscious, saving you some time," she said in a professional tone. Ronin gave a curt nod. "Let's do that then." They walked down one of the white corridors, stopping by one of the several doors. "By the way, would you mind if I ask you a personal question?" the doctor asked. No, ask away." "What's going on with your eyes? And why are you here?" Ronin, a little taken aback, replied, "That is indeed a little personal. Let's just say my face looks the way it does due to a certain private medical condition. It is in part why I want the scan. As for why I'm here." He looked down at her. "You should be able to infer more than enough based on the implant I picked. Anything besides that is my business, not yours." "You can't blame a girl for being curious, can you? You're half the age of my usual clientele. But fine. You go on and keep your secrets." Acting a little offended, Dr. Xianxia Furness opened the door, then guided him in. A white medical chair stood in the center of the room. On it were numerous instruments, including drills and scalpels. Ronin walked up to it, then sat down, nervous. The reality of what was about to happen to him was finally beginning to set in. This operation required the doctor to operate deep within his eye, both pulling out and pushing in an implant. To have another person stick instruments this deeply into his head. Xianxia did something with her eye, and the chair began lowering down as Ronin clenched his fists. She then brought out a breathing mask, and Ronin put it on. "There, you should fall asleep within a few seconds," she said. A few seconds passed, but Ronin only felt a little sleepy. "Seems we'll have to increase the dosage, sir," Xianxia said, a little flustered. "Did you take anything before coming here?" "Nothing that should affect this," he replied. The woman did something with her eyes as more and more gas exited the breathing apparatus. "I think it's beginning to work," Ronin said, his words now a little sluggish. "It better. I've tripled the dosage." The frustrated doctor's face became more and more fuzzy as Ronin finally went under. And right before awareness left him, his shoulders slumped a little. It would be good not to worry about being monitored from within his own head anymore. Ronin woke up feeling refreshed. There was none of the headache one would expect from having metal put into one's head. Whatever anesthetics he'd been given had also been completely flushed out of his system. "Surprised?" the female doctor asked, brushing her hair aside. She looked proud. "Everything I've read about these operations said there would be immediate side effects. I really didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Thank you," he happily shot back. Activating his new Uninet 2000, he began testing it out. He opened up live streams, hologram programs. He scanned his body. Everything seemed to work perfectly. Also, both the quality and speed of this device was on a whole other level. He barely had to think about what he wanted before the optical implant displayed it. "This thing is amazing. It's almost as fast as the speed of thought. It's like it's a part of my mind," he thought, his eyebrows shooting up in amazement. "You get what you pay for. Here at CyberSpecs, you not only get the best services on the planet, but you also get complete and total anonymity." Done with her marketing pitch, Xianxia continued. "Anyways, your case was a bit special. After you went under, when I did the operation, each and every one of your muscle fibers kept twitching. It didn't exactly make this easy. You're lucky you did this here and not somewhere else." Twitching? What could have caused that? Ronin already had a sneaking suspicion as to what it could be, but he hoped he was wrong. Xianxia shook her head. "I've never seen anything like it before. This also brings us to your bioscan. I'm still not sure what to make of it." "What do you mean?" Ronin asked. "All the values I measured, from blood pressure, cell division rate to cognitive activity, show elevated values, but you still appear to be perfectly healthy." Xianxia's eyes gained a manic light. "What's even more interesting is that, during the scan, I encountered several anomalous energy readings. I didn't know what to make of it, so I ran the scan again." The doctor's already intense eyes flashed wide. "Guess what I found? Every single value I measured was higher during the second scan, including the anomalous energy readings. Also, my drugs had a very unusual effect on you. For example, when I lowered your blood pressure, something else increased in response. Who knows what might happen if these values continue to increase? You might just suddenly fall over, dead, just like that. You could even suddenly explode. Imagine that." Boom. Xianxia Furness was getting more and more excited as she talked, beginning to gesture with her hands. "Explode?" Ronin stuttered, horrified. Looking at the not-so-professional doctor anymore, he thought back to the battle lust he'd felt when confronting the rooftop bandits. That battle lust has to be related to that anomalous energy she mentioned. The energy must be forcing my body to fight somehow. Is there any way to reduce those elevated values you measured, any at all? He asked. Dr. Furness, clearly a bit too happy considering his circumstances, raised a hand to her chin in thought. None that I can think of. While you were unconscious, I did try to change those values, as I just mentioned. I also searched up anything related to your condition on the net. But there was nothing even remotely close to what I measured on you. No condition, no artificially induced state, nothing. There's simply no precedent for whatever is happening to you. Nothing at all? Ronin asked in bafflement. In all of human society, there must be something, right? The Concordia net only covers the 4 planets of Tar. She looked him deep in his eyes, her gaze now firm. I didn't use the Concordia net. I used the quantum net. Don't ask me how I have access, but this network covers all of human-occupied space. Out of the vast ocean of humanity out there, trillions upon trillions of people, not a single person recorded, has values like yours. Realization began to sink in. Ronin was on his own. He saw that now. If he was going to fix whatever was happening to him, he'd have to do so himself. Didn't I get some new memories after opening that door in my mind palace? Maybe I should spend some time looking into that. Come to think of it, there might be a way, Leanna broke in, interrupting his train of thought. She walked over towards a desk, pulling out a drawer as she searched around for something. After finding it, she continued, If all else fails and there is no other way out for you, you can call this ID here. She handed Ronin a card of paper. The words on the card were elegantly written in black ink. The Brinksman, it read. His new Uninet 2000 reacted to something within the ink, and new information began materializing in front of him in the form of a holoscreen. These are DNA transplant services and genetic enhancement procedures. Ronin pulled back, aghast. Biomodification, in general, was highly illegal, not only in Tar, but in all of human space. If a state openly engaged in this, all rights and privileges could be revoked. There was even a risk they'd be designated as aliens. The card has now been calibrated to your implant ID. Keep it out of sight, she said. If the nanoparticles embedded into the card detect any attempt to access it, and it's not you, it will self-destruct. A last resort indeed, Ronin agreed. A last resort indeed.